This is another message from the underground. The voice of Free Earth, brought to you by Paul Seils, straight from the source. You are here now with a special purpose to fulfill. And you are not alone. This is it, family. It's up to us. One planet, one spiritual source, in a multitude of forms. Stay human. Protect the planet. Raise the consciousness.
Hi guys, Paul Seils with another message from the underground. I've got a very special guest with me today, Ole Dammegard. Ole's a truth seeker, codebreaker and peacemaker. Ole Dammegard was awarded the Prague Peace Prize and adopted by the Apache Nation. We'll talk a little bit more about that. He's also an author, international speaker, former journalist, fellow musician of 2 solo albums, composer on TV and short film, artist, inventor, an investigator who has dedicated the last 40 years to researching many of the global conspiracies. Millions of viewers and listeners around the world have taken part in his interviews and presentations. His main focus has been to find out the truth about the assassinations of JFK, the Swedish Prime Minister, and Robert Kennedy, Martin Luther King, John Lennon, Lady Di, plus hundreds of alleged mass shootings and terror attacks such as 9/11, Norway, Oklahoma City, and many, many more. Ole Dammegard, thank you for joining us.
It's an absolute pleasure, Paul, and great seeing you again. And I was so happy when you said that you're into music as well. Let's just transcend this minor bump in the road called the New World Order and then kick back with a nice jam session and a cold beer.
Absolutely, it sounds so great. And as we were speaking just before we came on air, it's this is what I do to sort of be of service, and I imagine you do as well. But my real true joy is really in the presence and the spiritual practice of music. And I haven't got the track record. I've released commercially 2 singles previously, but and I haven't played any gigs in the last 12 months, which has sort of been really weird. But it's great to talk to a fellow musician and artist and truth seeker. So thank you for joining us.
I tell you, Paul, for me, it seems like these things go very much hand in hand. Creativity, to be inspired. When they say inspired, it's then, when body and mind aligns, the spirit enters. And so it becomes like almost like a divine download. Not that I'm sort of religious, but I feel, to me, and I feel many other people, I think you resonate with that as well, is that music, writing, painting, it all comes from the same source, and it has the same rhythm to it. It has the same mathematic structure and so on. But what comes through all of it is that if it's not real, it's not good, But if it's true, then it comes from a pure place, and then it really resonates with the hearts of others. So this is where music comes in, and paintings and arts, and there's also a reason why dictators, when they take over, one of the first groups they aim at to delete are exactly that: poets, artists, musicians, these type of individuals, because they can inspire, in spiritus one again, the population into becoming true to themselves, and thus become a major problem for dictators. So I think it's many people are shaking their heads at artists and things and say, oh, come on, get a job, grow up, become real. That's the thing. Maybe these ones are the real ones. And when you look at the whole big scheme among the native Indians, that's such a stupid expression. American Indians, North American Indians, they were there before any other native, whatever. So, but they say, certain tribes of them say that the dreamers are the saviors of the world. And many tribes were very much, if people were daydreaming or they were left alone because they were part of creating a better future. And here in this society, we're being bashed for being like, come on, you're just sitting there daydreaming instead of being indoctrinated. And I would say maybe it's the time to look at that in a different way.
Absolutely. There's I'm very much into music, and it's interesting that we started off on that note. And I'm a huge fan of John Mellencamp. John Mellencamp's got a song, and I've had to see him. I've been able to see him in concert several times, including when I was in the US with Nashville, and we'll talk about Nashville a little bit further as well. But got to see John Mellencamp in concert with John Fogerty from Creedence
Wow.
Clearwater Revival, and that was an
Wow.
amazing concert. But he's got a lyric in one of his songs called, and the lyric goes, "Save some time to dream, because your dream might save us all."
And that, I rest my case. In
Yeah.
that sentence lies the whole secret.
Hmm.
But John Mellencamp is Australian, isn't he?
No, John
As far as I
Mellencamp
know.
is from Bloomington, Indiana, in the
Okay,
US.
and there you go. Oh, I'm talking about In Excess. I'm mixing them up, the two of
Michael
them.
Hutchins, yeah.
That's the one. I'm mixing them. But it's interesting that you say Creedence Clearwater, because that was the group that got me started. I was, that was how I learned to play the guitar, trying to figure out the solos of John
Yeah.
Fogerty and the whole thing. So
Yeah,
interesting that you brought that.
yeah, it's great. So just for the people that haven't, I mean, you've been doing this for a long time. I mean, I've been in this in one way, shape, or form as a form of service and activism for like 20 years. You've been doing it for 40. Can you share with like what was the catalytic moment for you that was the impetus for what inspired you to be on this trajectory and create light on conspiracies, etc. Which is you've had a huge, particularly in the northern hemisphere. Not a lot of people sort of down under have a tendency
Oh,
to
I
know
know.
about your work.
No, not down under. It's more the US, England, Europe, these type of areas. But it's I'm starting to uncover why I, for some bizarre reason, became especially good at what I'm doing, because I don't know. I don't know what it is that I do different from others. I'm just living inside this meat suit, and I see stuff, I understand stuff in a certain way. You put me in a kitchen, absolute disaster. You put me as an electrician, I can guarantee I would cause fires. But in this area, I'm Rain Man, and so I'm a couple of years ago, my father, who died in 1992, came to me in a dream saying, "The key is in the ring. The key is in the ring." And at that point, I didn't understand that at all. But I woke up like, the key
Mm.
is in the ring. The key is in the ring. And so I started looking into it because it was such a powerful dream. And when he died, the only thing he was wearing was a silver ring. And that was the only thing I wanted to inherit from him,
Yeah.
was this silver ring. And it turned out, so I went to look at it closer because I'd never really looked at it. It was just like my dad's ring. And it turned out that it was an American Air Force ring. So I
Mm.
ask you, Paul, how the hell did a Danish citizen get an American Air Force ring that he carried his whole life, and where also the crystal in it is purple? And when you go through the American Air Force rings, different editions over the years, that color symbolizes royalty or aristocracy. And that is officially not where I come from. My background is from farmers in Denmark and stuff, not at all. So I started looking down this road, and my dad was high up in the Danish resistance movement during the Second World War, and my whole family on both sides were very heavily involved in the resistance movement during the Second World War.
Mm.
And it turns out now, I've started really digging into it, and it's absolutely mind-blowing and heartbreaking and confusing to find out that it seems like my dad was working as a secret NATO agent, as a secret NATO agent, as an asset into the Gladio network from the Second World War, the end of the Second World War, and onwards, maybe till the very day he died.
Mm.
And there's a great possibility that my mother was an asset as well, and that their marriage was arranged for two assets, where I was born as part of a front window to cover this as the perfect family.
Yeah.
Because the more I uncover, every place we lived, our neighbors, our friends, family members that came and visited us, where I could never really figure out, how the hell are we family related?
Yeah.
When the reason we had to move to Sweden overnight, very drastically, very fast, without even having time to say bye-bye to our friends, overnight, and where we went from a nice director's villa to a farmhouse from the 1780s with no water, no heating, no nothing, all because my mother loved Swedish nature. That was the official story.
Mm.
And then how, but I tell you, it was like the the Gladio network, or NATO, was created as a defense mechanism, a sort of defense brotherhood for many minor countries
Yeah.
during the Cold War. And in the beginning, NATO was there to support and help, and officially at least.
Yeah.
And one of the things they did was build up a secret ghost army called Gladio. And it was in these areas where it seems like my whole family was involved. And then, unfortunately, in the mid-60s, this turned around and has been used as a terror tool against the Western world, where Gladio has now become the symbol of state-sponsored terrorism. So I think that I was born with this without knowing it. I got it in my genes. And growing up, I called my childhood boot camp, because it was a very brutal family in many ways, a very dominant father, former military. And there were all of these things with things that was not being told out, double layers of things, not understanding, being manipulated, being lied to. And I think from a child and onward, I got this in me, to sense when people were lying, or to sense when I was being set up or duped or whatever. And so indirectly, I was born with this. And what is really heartbreaking is that both my parents died without ever revealing anything about this background, even though my mother was even part of translating my books, where I was writing about Gladio and Stay Behind, these hidden networks. Never said a word. Both of them took it with them in their grave.
Wow.
And the thing is, to know that every single conversation we've had our whole life, because I've got it confirmed now from multiple different sources, that this is not just speculation, but at least my dad and my mother must have been aware of it to a certain extent, but that this was in their mind at all times. At all times we were together. They were living a double life, and that I couldn't see it with all of the years I put into this, that I didn't even see it. That is just unbelievable. But there you go. When you're being indoctrinated, or you grow up in a mindset that is locked like this, you can see it in other families or other relationships maybe, but I didn't see it in my own family until very recently.
Okay. So that was
how it began.
Yeah.
And then it started with the JFK assassination. That was the big starting point in 1980 for me, when I saw the Zapruder movie the first time, where you see how Kennedy was shot and how the official story said the shooter was behind him. But it's so obvious. I mean, you don't have to be specifically clever to see that the impact is from the front and to the right. Boom. So that started me down this road that has led me to this.
Wow. So we'll talk a little bit about the JFK thing as well, because we've got a bit of ground to cover, and it's in I really look forward to this, because it's really in the discovery. We've got no idea where the conversation's going to go, but it's just going to evolve. So you were born into that environment, and ultimately with your parents that were consummate professionals that never broke their cover, even with you. Yeah.
It's very strange, Paul, and it's really, I even have, now I have photos, from like 1950, 57 or 58. I have a photo of my father and my mother in a big new Chevrolet Bel Air, brand new. And at that time, he was officially a bum living in a bus with his dog behind a gas station. So how the hell did he get his hand on one of these cars? That would be like me turning up in a Lamborghini, brand new Lamborghini, that type of. And so this photo has always circulated in our family. My dad was proud talking about it. He said the only one else than him that had that exact model was Elvis. So it's not just any other car. It was like a white and light blue, baby blue, brand new Bel Air Chevy from 57. And the thing is, my mother is in the car as well. She's sitting having a cigarette. My dad is sitting with a scarf like that. Behind him is a bus that is possibly the bus that he was living in, with some strange antennas on it. But the thing is that I managed to track down, after just a few years ago, many years after they died, the exact location where this photo was taken. And that is right on top of what was in those days in the Cold War, NATO's most advanced spy center of all times. There were two ones, the Tulis base on northwest of Greenland, and that one. It was called Stevns, and it's now a Cold War museum. It's like an underground, 22 meters below the surface, 2 kilometers of tunnels with the most sophisticated equipment at that time on the east coast of Denmark, which was actually the front line against Russia. Not when you look at a map, but because of Sweden being officially neutral in those years and Finland belonging to the Eastern Bloc, made the eastern coast of Denmark the absolute front line towards the east. So it was actually, when they talk about the Iron Curtain, that was part of it. And so the car is parked right on top. Behind them, you can see the camouflaged entrance down into the bunkers. I've been on the exact location, found it, guided. I don't know how the hell I managed to find that location, but it was because I started seeing that where the car was standing was on sand. It was not a gravel road. It was not a tarred road. It was on sand. And then the radio masts in the background and the hills and stuff. There's not a lot of hills in Denmark. It's a very, very flat country. So through that, I managed to find it, and it turned out it's a Cold War museum. And so the more I uncover, it's not very pretty. I tell you, not very pretty. And unfortunately, I think that my father was part of taking out people as well, because he was the guy that got things sorted. He took care of business. So no wonder that I feared him when I was a child.
Yeah. Well, it's an incredible. Thanks for sharing that. I mean, a lot of us think we're sort of experiencing psychological operations at the moment. It's very subtle, even though it's brutal and blunt as far as media is concerned. I'm not sure it's like in the US at the moment, but the mainstream media is just a full-blown propaganda machine at the moment. And it's interesting with what you're sharing as well. And I've also traced. I've never had the good fortune to visit Denmark, but I have traced my genealogy from my parents, my father's side, all the way back to Poland, which was formerly Germany and handed over post 1945, and got into conversations there with a lot of people in that whole era around the Stasi and that sort of thing, and people sharing about their parents and their grandparents and that sort of thing. They are still alive and fearful of having conversations with people because they're worried about their, with infiltration within families, and like the massive psychological operations and the fear and the control that still exists is really, truly quite amazing.
But I tell you, Paul, that is because they have lived it. It's like if you take a country like Sweden, officially neutral, they have no clue. They haven't felt it on their body. You go to Poland, you go to Eastern Germany, they lived it, and it's not that many years ago. I tell you, the wall came down in the late 80s, and before that, the whole Stasi system, and now when you go through the archives of the former Stasi archives and stuff, you see they've got the mailman, it was your cousin, it was your wife, it was all of them were informing on each other.
Yeah.
So these countries, for me, it's a lot easier to talk to people from these countries and get an understanding, or people from Iran or Iraq or stuff, where they have experienced it, than to go to the so-called Western world that are so naive and are just buying into it. I mean, from the former Eastern Bloc, they know it's propaganda. You turn on the TV, you will watch propaganda in different variations. But we are like, no, come on. You're so messed up in your head. How can you even imagine something like that? Well, what can I say? Over the years, when you start seeing that was what they said, that was so not true, that was what they said, that was so not true, but it was serving a different agenda. And you always have to ask yourself, with all kinds of operations, who benefits?
Yes.
Who benefits? It's the same with crimes. Follow the money, follow who is the receiver of whatever it is you're giving away, if it's your freedoms or whatever. And like Voltaire said many, many hundreds of years ago, to find out who is controlling you, find out who you're not allowed to criticize. And in these days, it's so interesting because that is so spot on.
Yeah.
And this ugly face is just showing itself more and more clearly.
It's becoming more and more blatant. So can we go back to the conversation about, like we're going to cover a little bit of ground here. So thanks for anyone that's listening and joining us at the moment. But let's just revisit and I always try to look for having the knowledge and the information is one thing, but unless it gives us a context to be empowered or to find solutions or to learn what's happening from the past for the now, for us to get hopefully wiser from it. But in relation to the JFK assassination, and without spending too much time on it, because we've got a lot of ground, including to cover off on what's happening in Nashville and what's happening with the US, and you've covered and you broke a lot of the information about exposing the agenda for the rush on the Capitol Hill. We'll cover some ground off on that as well. But there was a lot of speculation to say that the assassination of JFK was really about the agenda that he wanted to withdraw the troops from Vietnam and to be committed to the gold standard. Is that fundamentally the bottom line in relation to the assassination of JFK?
It's a minor part of it.
Okay.
I wouldn't say minor, that's wrong. But, when you look at history, there's been some very big turning points or occasions where this agenda that has been on the move for the last 300 years at least, called the New World Order type, that there are some major events here. And one of them is the JFK assassination, which was almost like a global coup d'etat that took place there in Dallas. You got 9/11, it's another one, and you got the corona, it's a third one.
Yeah.
And we're talking modern times now. So that's the reason why JFK was, that assassination is so important. Maybe not so much for JFK's background or anything like that, but who took over that day, who was behind this assassination. That's why this is one of the cases I devoted the most time in my life, some 30 odd years. And what I've been trying to is pinpoint who carried out the operation on a street level. Yeah. Because the higher up you go in this power pyramid, the more difficult it becomes. It's so much fog and smoke and mirrors, and you're never able to find a paper trail going up to who really carried on out. So in many of these operations, even the people doing the shooting, they don't know who they're shooting almost, They're just following orders. They're just doing their little part. They're being paid by people who don't know who they're actually delivering the money from. It's totally compartmentalized by design. So the JFK assassination was very important because also to take out someone at that level, it's not easy without leaving a lot of trails. That's why they always try to blame it on a lone crazy guy. The reason why they want him alone is then by law, it's not a conspiracy. Conspiracy is two or more people involved in criminal planning or carrying out a crime. Yeah. And the reason they want him crazy is because then there's no need for a motive. He was crazy, we shot him. Thank you, case closed, good, go. Thank you and goodbye, go back to sleep, folks, and let's move on.
Yeah, we have similar, I was just going to interject there as well and say, Ollie, we have a similar scenario. I don't know whether you're aware of it or done very much research on it in relation to the disarming of Australia with the Port Arthur massacre with Martin Bryant. And same scenario, right? Like we got a diminished version, but the lone guy, psychological profile, unstable, no accomplices.
Paul, it's like this. I believe that the old Romans were the ones that started, that came up with the templates that are still being used to this very day. The only thing is we've tried to fine tune them and digitalize them and done. It's still the same. It's still the same. And political assassinations is one of them. And that one is a major weapon they have against us, because in that way they can take out alpha individuals with really good intentions, a lot of courage, and they can destroy them and then blame it on someone, a patsy that they still, if it's an individual or organization, but somebody that they wanted to divert the attention to, and indirectly many times destroy that as well. Point at the Russians, point at the Muslims, point at whoever. So when it comes to these type of operations, the scenario, the theme is the same, 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 and the same.
Yeah.
So it's not so that this Port Arthur shooting follows and ticks all the boxes, including what was the solution to the event, thus disarming Australia. The Bali bombing, what was that? Getting Australia into the war of terror, war on terror. It's actually war of terror.
Yeah.
It's like there's so many operations that are they're following the exact same templates, and that's why once I started understanding these templates, this is one of the things I've been trying to share with as many as possible, so that you can see the setup instead of seeing, so the next time, like for instance, the Mexican president gets shot by a pacifist. Okay, what? He refused to carry weapons in the military, so he shot the president. I mean, that's the kind of level of brain activity these operations are based on, And so you will see the exact same template being used over and over and over again. So, and it's come to a point where I actually, through an insider, was informed that they even leave clues in the forensic evidence after them, pointing to the next event. And when this was in the fall of 2014, I was contacted by this guy who said, I don't know who he was, anonymous source. He said, I've been following you for years. You're doing great, but you miss out on the clues. I was like, what clues? And he repeated, they deliberately leave hidden clues in the forensic evidence. And I said, why on earth would anyone do such a stupid thing? And he said, his words, it's because they fear the law of karma. What you do comes back to you. And he said the way they interpret the law is that if they show us, even in subtle ways, what they're up to, and we do not react, indirectly consent, that means that we accept what they're going to do, and the bad karma is coming on our shoulders, not theirs. And in his words, the insider's words, he said, if they show us, even in subtle ways, we don't react, and then they manage to pull it off, it even adds good karma to them. How bizarre is that? But ever since that, when I started seeing that, oh my God, it's actually true what he was saying. When something happens, I focus on where's the clue? Where's the clue? Where's the clue? It's like a Da Vinci Code, where is it? It's here somewhere. And very often it's in one photo among hundreds of others. Boom, there it is. And pointing to the next one with different symbols and, clues and labyrinths and mind games and stuff. But once you start understanding the language, the modus operandum of how they carry these things out, you will be able to be part of help to expose these. And so up to date, I think I'm up to 61 that I predicted correctly up till 2 months before they actually happened on international radio. So I think that is not just guessing anymore. 62, if I've been correct every single time, that is a pretty good track record. And thus it has helped many, many people around the world becoming really good at this. So I get a lot of people sending me stuff where they're pointing at, look at that, look at that, look at that, look at that. So it's amazing. It is absolutely amazing. Yeah. And it's even, if I can brag, my last name has actually become a verb. So #Dammegard or #Dammegarding is to find the clues and predict the next upcoming attack. So I find that quite funny. It's not me that made it a verb, but I feel proud to be a verb. I'm now a noun and a verb. So what will be the next one? I don't know.
So you'll be trending. You'll be trending, Ole. But that's interesting that there are, and I can actually see patterns as well. I can see patterns in behavior. I see patterns in programming.
You asked me about JFK, and I so did not answer it. So I'll go back to that. So the JFK became a massive, major problem when I think it was after the Cuban Missile Crisis, when he was sitting with his finger on the button that could have started the Third World War. The whole thing was Russia. Khrushchev was officially, they said that he was ordered a ship going with missiles to Cuba, and the U.S. became aware. They said, if you cross this line on the sea, if you cross that, we will press the button and start the Third World War. And actually, by accident, the ship actually crossed the line. And so the whole military-industrial complex was standing shouting at JFK, press the button, because they want death and destruction. That's the name of their game, massive profit. And JFK, people who was there said that he sat there with tears in his eyes saying, I refuse to be the one that does this to the world.
Yeah.
And so I believe that was sort of like an awakening for him from being sort of like a playboy, a rich man, playboy, rich son, playboy type of guy, into the world of, oh my God, the level of madness. We almost blew the world to smithereens because of these mad individuals. So from then on, you will see that it's like a 180-degree turn from this playboy turning into a very determined individual. I am not going to allow this anymore. I will change this for the better. And so he knew that he put himself in harm's way big time, he and Robert as well. But what they did was they stood up and they said, we're going to crush the CIA into 1,000 pieces. That on its own is like, what? What? We're going to withdraw from Vietnam, which is not a war about against the communism. It's a war regarding importation or the import of drugs from the Golden Triangle to get a reason and a major drug line going from Southeast Asia into the Western world. That was one of the major things. And also massive, massive profits for the military-industrial complex. Yeah. Then we had the Silver Standard, withdraw that whole thing, stopping Israel from the nuclear power program. We have there were many reasons, but this is the thing, like for instance, if you have, when you come to these big assassinations, it's not just one motive. It's like whoever is involved in hating that individual, they bring them in, and then whoever, like the mob was, you had the mafia that had helped JFK to come into power. It was the closest presidential race ever, just 100,000 votes. And the 100,000 votes came to a large extent from dead people in Chicago, where the Chicago mobs under Sam Giancana was collecting names from the tombstones and thus getting him into the White House. So the mob was like, okay, we helped you, dude. Now you help us. They thought, yeah, hey. And what did JFK do? He put his brother, Robert Kennedy, into a witch hunt of the mafia. The verdicts against mafia members went up 700% in 1 year. And J. Edgar Hoover, who had put a blind eye to the mob because they had incriminating photos of him, in homosexual acts with Clyde Tolson, his second in charge, and a lot of other things. He has been sitting there, FBI, ruling an empire, and suddenly, had JFK been elected in '64, he would have fired his ass, and Johnson was just about to be called in to court for facing at least 8 murder charges, where one of them, his own sister, where he had his henchman, Mac Wallace, to take out these people for him. That was just 8 murder cases with part of a massive thing that was going to take Lyndon down, Lying Lyndon, as he went under the nickname, So there were so many different forces that profited on him getting taken out. So when it came to the assassination in Dallas, I was one of the speakers in Dallas a few years ago. I know personally quite a few of the people now, like Judith Berry Baker, who was the mistress of Lee Harvey Oswald, and the Babushka lady, and E. Howard Hunt's son, St. John, these are, which has been amazing for me to meet after, but what happened in that day was that he was taken out by a coalition, an unholy alliance between the mob, the CIA, the Secret Service, the Dallas Police Office, the military-industrial complex. Who did I miss out on? Well, That was the structure behind it. And everybody had to supply shooters. And many of them came from a group called Operation 40, which is a super secret hit team that was put together in the early 60s under the surveillance of, it was President Eisenhower that gave the task to put together like a mobile unit that could take out anyone, anywhere, at any time around the globe. And so Operation 40 or Group 40 was created. And it was under the surveillance of Vice President Richard Nixon. And it was with some 3 gray wolves from the CIA. It was E. Howard Hunt. It was the blonde ghost. Oh, come on. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
My,
I was going to ask you a
went.
question. You might be able to come back to it as well. Was there any
Yeah.
truth in the rumours and the photographs that George Herbert Walker Bush was there at the time?
And the paymaster of Operation 40 was a very young George Bush Sr. Yeah, he was in the Deltex building when the shots were fired from that house. The shooter in that specific window was Chucky Nicoletti, a hitman from the Chicago mob. The spotter there was Tony Izquierdo, part of Operation 40. You had Johnny Rosselli in the same window, and George Bush Sr. And George Bush Jr., boy George, was also on location in Dallas that day as a very young, like a teenager. There are photos of both of them there. And he was the paymaster. And George Bush Sr., if you ever want to see what a real monster looks like with a nice voice, that's one for you. His father, Prescott Bush, was part of funding not a hit team, but funding the Hitler war machine through the Dulles brothers, the 2 lawyers. That was then the minister of the U.S. Foreign Minister, John Foster Dulles, and then Allen Dulles, who was the chief of the CIA at the same time, and who was fired by JFK. But so Prescott Bush, the father of George Bush Sr., was part of funding the funds into the Hitler war machine. And Prescott's father, which was the grandfather of George Bush Sr., was the guy that was part of faking the so-called Zimmerman telegram that got the USA into the First World War. Can you see the same tiny little family is part of creating a big part of the First World War, a big part of the Second World War, and then part of taking out JFK. It's unbelievable. And then it was George Bush Sr. then in 1990 on September 11, go figure, went on and said, well, this is the New World Order. Fuck all of you. We're going to take it over. You get yourself in line. There's no way to fight this whole thing. And then we had 9/11, the exact same structure, where the Bush family was very, very deeply involved in that, including Marvin Bush, who was part of the security one for the Twin Towers that day. But the whole shebang is where you have a center. The Bush family is very, not the top of it, absolutely not, but vital in the carrying out of these operations.
It's fascinating.
So I can
I
name most of the shooters. There was it seems like there were around 12 shooters around Dealey Plaza. I can name more or less all of them, how they got there, who financed it, the weapons, the cars they were using, and so on. But that will take quite a long time. But it's the same power structure, and this is why it's so important to find out who was behind these things, because they're still active and they're still doing things against us.
Yeah. Well, the patterns are very much there, the same as well, Johnny. And it's when you were talking about there with the voting systems and even the drug trade, like I had to check in there for a moment whether you were talking about then or whether you were talking about now, because of the fact that the patterns and the systems are still there. If you look at it now, that since the the US invasion, or the Allies, etc., invasions of the Middle East in those countries, which were outlined in the project for the New American Century, of the invasion of those countries, including Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Libya, etc. Afghanistan now, it's probably even more now since then, but up until a couple of years ago, Afghanistan now supplies 93% of the world's heroin supply, which is phenomenal.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It is. When you look at, all of this is based on 9/11, all of these wars, they say. Okay, so how many pilots were there from Afghanistan? About zero. How many from Iraq? About zero. How many from Libya? Zero. How many from Libya? About zero.
Yeah.
So how can you base all of that on something? And these Saudi pilots, where 9 of them were still alive after the whole thing happened. I mean,
Mm.
go figure. Welcome to Alice in Wonderland. Wake up, snap out of it. What the
Yeah.
hell are we buying into? What is going on here? It's a war of deception. They
Yeah.
need us to consent into their madness. So
Yeah.
once again, with this whole thing about pushing it out there in front of our eyes, the whole the plan that you just described, the whole thing has been out there in the open all the time. They tell us what they're going to do. That's,
Yeah.
I think it's the setup of this universe, is that evil has to present it to us, and we have to allow it to happen.
Yeah.
It's like evil cannot, if we do not consent, it cannot act. So this is why we have the power. As soon as we snap out of this horrible vacuum, I don't know, trance, I don't know what's going on here,
Yeah.
and just see, whoa, this is so not okay with me. We can stop this in a totally non-violent way.
Yeah, and it's interesting you should say that as well. So it's whether it's their karmic debt or but also under Admiralty maritime law, which most of the world exists at the moment. You know, it was originally meant to be for the oceans, but now they're sort of working under the assumption that the Earth is a vessel in the sea of space, that they have to advertise. They have to advertise what they're doing, and then it's not that it's being done to us. It's the fact that our lack of consciousness is allowing it to happen to us.
And that is exactly it. It is up to us. We have to inform ourselves. It's, you know, they work a lot with occult forces, and occult just means hidden.
Yes.
You know, it's not that it doesn't, they haven't created it. They've just been hiding it from us. They found out, oh my God, check this one out. We're going to keep that for ourselves. We're not going to let them know about it, because we want to control them. So it's for us to uncover the occult stuff that they're using against us, and then say, absolutely no way am I accepting this. Yes. No way. And so if you go back to old stories and old, Walt Disney stuff and stuff, it's always that evil has to present itself as really beautiful and nicely packaged, like a glossy paper, and kind. I'm so kind, like that. And then we will say, well, okay, Little Red Riding Hood, I will open the door and let you in. So if we say, no way, thank you, but absolutely no way, we have the power. They are powerless. Yes. In case of, so we need to inform ourselves. And this is why it's so wonderful and liberating to see around the world, people are starting to study common law and these type of things, where they just say, you have no authority over me. Who are you just because you got a black uniform on? I've got a tailor that can make an identical one than that. It doesn't give you power over me. Thank you, but absolutely no thank you. And now bugger off. Leave me alone, because you have no power over me. And the only way they can get to us is through fear. And so we need to be very aware of, where does this fear come from, and who benefits from me believing it.
Absolutely, Ollie. And it's that they have no jurisdiction over us, and to do not consent and do not contract with them. And like you say, there's a lot of... The contract
one.
Yes.
That is a really, really interesting one as well, because when they stop you at the airport, for instance, and they say, excuse me, sir, can you please follow me? That's when you say, if you say yes, you enter into this contract. And from then on, you're in their hands. So it's like, that's so kind of you to offer me to follow you to that room. That's very kind. Thank you. No, thank you. Can you please park your car over here? That's the contract. Thank you, but no thank you. Can you please put down your window? Thank you. No, thank you. Yes. Can you please come outside your house? Thank you. No, thank you. Can you please? No, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
And it takes the power away. It's fantastic to watch people becoming aware of it and really having the courage to stand up and do it.
Absolutely. And that's the, there's the indoctrination there as well, Ollie, about our programming and our education about what we think words mean, and then you have their version of words under Black's Law Dictionary, etc. As you were saying, under contracting, they say, do you understand? And people say yes, but that means, do you stand under my jurisdiction? Yeah.
Yes, I overstand.
Yes.
I overstand, And it's a tricky one, but once you become aware of it, it's really amazing, because it's like you're pulling the curtain away saying, I see you. You, the emperor's new clothes, you're stark naked. You have nothing on me.
Yeah.
So, and like the word government, it means governmente. It means control the mind. It means mind control. It's in our face. Like you got Germanic languages, Regierung or Regering. It means rulers. But we think, I have been part of electing them. I feel so proud. I was voting for him, and then he got into office. Oh, isn't that amazing? No, it's not. We have let them become our rulers. And I say, thank you, but you can just, that's what I say. Thank you very much, but absolutely not. I'm not allowing you to have any power over me. And I'm not, it was like Max Egan. I thought that was amazing. He was asked, do you vote? He said, no, I don't support organized crime. I thought that was brilliant. That was brilliant.
Yeah.
I don't support organized crime. Like my deceased mother would have said, fan bloody tastic.
Yeah.
That was so spot on. Because once you start seeing how this whole political system is rigged, it's not only set up, it's totally rigged from day one. Where in most countries you got like a right and a left, and then you got three parties in the middle, like smaller ones, the center party or whatever. And then it's like, which one are you going to choose? It's like having an illusionist, like doing, which finger do you choose? The only problem is all of them belongs to me. Yeah. So it doesn't matter who you choose.
Yeah.
And when I've been touring around, twice people have come forward from the audience when I've been describing how false flag operations are set up, how they carry these things out, and they're able to pull it up right in front of us, right in front of our face. And two people have said, what you described when you described the setup of false flag operation, you described my work. And so I asked them, so what do you do for a living? One of them said, I'm a magician. The other one said, I'm an illusionist. Yeah. And they said, you are this is exactly what we're being taught, like divert the attention. Look over here. It's happening with my left hand. So people don't see what you're actually doing with your right hand. So the thing, diversion, make people think that they have actually selected the card when you have already chosen it for them. Yeah. Whatever you think that, I did that, you did not. You were manipulated into thinking that you did it.
Yeah.
So I thought that was amazing, because this is exactly what it is. We're up like an incredible illusionist. And the thing is, why do they need these psychological operations? Why do they need all of this thing? Why? Because they're so few. If we saw how few they are, if we saw how weak they are, just like pulling the curtain in The Wizard of Oz, It's not a massive power. It's a tiny little old man with a microphone and a massive amplifier called mainstream media and the whole shebang.
Propaganda.
They need these psychological operations because they're actually so weak.
Absolutely. And just to, before we get into the Washington DC, because ultimately this is one of the most sort of interesting weeks in the histories of our lifetime at the moment, what we're about to experience. But I just wanted to share with you as well, talking about the deception and the patterns again as well. So I spent a decade in the Middle East, and got to do a lot of research, met a lot of interesting people, including one of Osama bin Laden's half-brothers. And it's well documented in relation to Middle East that Osama bin Laden was treated for kidney dialysis at the American hospital in Dubai in July 2001. Yeah, and treated and visited by CIA agents and that sort of thing as well. So interestingly enough...
And died there as well.
Yeah. he passed, and then the whole thing about the SEAL Team 6 and then all those guys getting killed, and it goes on and on and on, right? It goes on and on and on. But the interesting thing, I was just having this conversation with someone this morning, that the patterns are there if you look for them. So what we're experiencing at the moment with the whole agenda, with the invasion of the Middle East and Islamophobia and that sort of thing, it's exactly the same highly effective system of propaganda that they're using. Just delete, weapons of mass destruction or Islamophobia and insert coronavirus, and the narrative is almost precisely exactly the same, except global at the moment.
Can I repeat myself? It's
Sure.
the same, the same,
The
the
same.
same, the 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 same. Do you know, it's like the same. It's the same. And it's like watching the same Rocky movie over and over and over. And people say, how could you know that that was a setup? Because I've seen the movie 48 times in a row. It's even the same actors. Come on, it's the same script. So it's like, going back to what you're talking about, they have very few weapons against us. We're talking psychological weapons, which are the real weapons, Diversion. Boom, something goes off over there. Everybody looks to the left. Because I know how they work, boom, I look over here. What are they? It's always in the exact opposite direction of where whatever the attention is being pulled. So the next time you got the media occupied for months on end. Did Bill Clinton get a blowjob or did he not by Monica Lewinsky? For months and months and months. What is that? It's a diversion. I have not touched this woman. Okay.
I had no sexual relations with that woman.
I had no sexual. The whole media is looking that way, while in that direction, you got the whole Iran-Contras, you got the whole New World Order, you got the whole shebang going on over here, where we should focus. Diversion, that is one. Then you have divide and conquer. So whatever nation or area, it's different, so whatever problem is there on a local ground, on a local basis, you just amplify that. So before the Bosnian conflict, the Balkan War, it was divide and conquer. So you just they went in and they started pumping propaganda against the Muslim, the Croatians, the Serbs, like this. So whoever had the problem with the other ones, you just amplified it. So in countries where there's Islamophobic, they have problems with Muslims, go in, do that. If it's the Hindus, you go in, do that. If in Sweden, you say it's the Russians are the problems or the immigrants or whatever, so it's a psychological operation, divide and conquer. Then you have the most important one, problem, reaction, solution. That one is heavy duty and needs to be understood. Problem, the few in power secretly create a problem. Nowadays, it's always an alleged mass shooting, alleged terror attack, alleged staged financial crash, or a virus. The virus has been there forever and ever. It's just changed the names. The same actors behind it. So problem, boom, something goes off. The reason is they aim to go emotional because they need an emotional reaction from us where we don't think we just go into emotional, oh my God, something needs to be done. This is horrible, horrible, horrible. So that's why they always hit something that is of national value, a symbol for that country, like the Twin Towers, the Eiffel Tower, something like that, touristic value that has a great impact, or women and children, nuns, nurses, to get the emotions going. People like you and me, Paul, sorry, we won't work in these type of operations because nobody would give a damn.
No, that's
but
right.
Women and children or kittens, that one works really well. It's just a matter of before they're going to go with kittens in the next big one. So that one, the outcry is, oh my God, and then they want us to turn towards the people we think are there to protect us, not understanding that it's actually them who have created the problem, saying, please help us. And they will listen. Well, the only way we can help you is, and boom, in comes the solution. And the solution was there from day one, and it's always the same. More and more control, more and more robocops, your liberties out the window, more and more cameras, more and more, you name it. So it's actually nowadays, it's problem, reaction, fascism is the correct wording of this. So when you look at these structures, I just want to point it out, vaccine. Let's talk about the alleged vaccines, which is
Okay.
not the correct labeling. It's a
Yes.
bio weapon. It's a biological weapon to destroy humanity. That is the correct labeling of this vaccine.
It's a treatment.
And now they say, we've been working now for 8 weeks straight. We look all tired and we haven't managed to shave. We're still smelling of alcohol, I'm sure, because we've been spending time throwing darts and having a party with prostitutes in the background. Now it's press conference. We've just managed to come out with a vaccine. No, the vaccine was there from day one.
Yeah.
The question was how would they be able to push it on humanity without a problem? So in on stage came Corona. And we can do another show, but I tell you, Paul, I totally believe that we have experienced a very soft yoga type version of Corona to what was actually being planned.
Yeah,
there was
absolutely.
a lot worse.
I was talking about this publicly way back. Even we sort of had events in Australia and talking publicly about the situation at the moment. And statistically, like over 500,000 people have been dying in the world every year for the last 10 years from complications in relation to common flu. They've been 1.5 million people on average have been dying every year from tuberculosis, and no one seemed to give a damn before. Yeah, flatlining.
And now the exact same numbers are dead.
Mm-hmm.
But it's amazing. This virus has cured every heart disease and lung disease, and every people have died of nothing else than Corona.
Yeah.
And then the total number of deaths are like this. In certain areas, it even's gone down.
Yeah.
But we're being pumped into believing that this is the worst threat the world has ever seen.
Yeah.
So not true.
Well, you probably would have seen the statistics about the Pfizer vaccine and the 30 people that died in Norway recently as a reaction to, with pre-existing conditions and terminally ill, etc.
33
now, is it? It was 23, then it was 29, now it must be 33.
Yeah, I doubt everything at this point, even things like that. The number 33 is repeated hundreds and hundreds of times in this operation. It's a Freemasonic number that you will see 33 new deaths there, 33 there, 33, 33, 33, 33. It's all over the place. So every time there's a 33 or 9/11, 11/9 or 7/7/7 or 9/11 or 6/6/6, you have to be aware of like, whoa, what's going on here?
Yeah.
These operations are also color coded. It's magenta or deep purple. You will see in the background of a lot of these operations, you have these dominant colors in the background. So be aware of the signs.
The symbolism and the numerology. I'm just wondering, Ollie, if we can, because we're sort of time's marching on, and we've still got a bit of ground to cover yet. We touched on, began the conversation with music and that sort of thing. I love Nashville. I got a lot of friends and family in Nashville, and I have been visiting it every couple of years to do music and that sort of thing and connect with people. I just love that town and that state. You have covered off on the Nashville incident recently, in relation to that event. I'm wondering if you've got any information in hindsight that you can consolidate and share with us around that event.
Yeah, for sure. What I can tell you is that it's 100% a false flag operation. Who was behind it, I'm not totally sure. Why it was carried out, I'm not totally sure. But what did happen there had clues about upcoming events. And in my newsletter from January the 1st, you can go in on conspiracies.com, where I predict you can go to the archives, and then all of these 60 ones that I'm talking about, this is where I said it, boom, that's when it happened. This is when I said it, boom, that's when it happened. And here I was on January the 1st saying Capitol Hill might be the next one. And the reason why I said that was because of, like I told you before, it's almost always in one photo where they pump this information. And sometimes it's super blatant. But here there was at the end of the street where this car bomb is said to have gone off, totally soundless, and where nothing matches up with a normal bomb the way with the location is very interesting with the Batman building, the AT&T, which is a company that has been totally in bed with the CIA from the Second World War and onwards. It's a very suspicious company that was even part of the setting Adolf Hitler up with all his telecommunication. But anyway, there at the end of the road, there are two yellow school buses that are being placed like this so that people can't look in. And there's absolutely no reason for seeing horrible stuff. So why were they parked there? And then there's a different angle with the two buses parked like that, where right in the center of the photo is the sign for Capitol Hill. It's a road sign. There's a Capitol Hill in Nashville as well. And so it's right in the center of the photo. And this is normally the way if they do it blunt, this is the way they do it. So I pointed out, possible next target, Capitol Hill. And I spoke to, it's interesting you talk about Navy SEALs, Team 6. I just did a show with Michael Jaco, who was part of that team. And this was the day before the Capitol, and I said, please be aware. I can't say for sure, but I feel there's a possibility that could be the next target. And boom, that's Capitol Hill, and it just exploded into this massive, big psychological operation. There are so many signs of this not being what we're being told in mainstream media. I would say 100% not true, the official story. And what actually went down there is a lot bigger. And now I just want to take the occasion here that what I find the clues where it's pointing to the next one is Rome, Italy, or the Vatican. Rome, Vatican, the Colosseum is one of, around there, or the Vatican is where the signs are pointing now, if I'm correct.
Yeah. Just in relation to the Washington D.C. event, I don't know, some people might have seen it. There was footage that was leaked through citizen journalists, etc., showing like police sort of waving people into the precinct. There's also footage that were taken by people that were in the crowd where the doors were actually opened on the side of the building, and there's a row of security or police detail on either side of the hallway, just like letting people walk in unhindered.
Paul, it's like when real things happen, I've been, if you are in a place where there's a riot or a revolution or a war zone, it's pumped with adrenaline. People are acting in a way that is unusual. It's so over the top because the adrenaline is really high. People are so frustrated and angry and fearful. And so here we see the exact opposite, very calm, there's the whole thing. And please be aware of when you look at like Jurassic Park, it looks really real. Are the diners, who trained the dinosaurs, or who's feeding them while they're not real? Nowadays, look at these big superhero movies with special effects. It looks so real. Is it real? You have to ask yourself, is it real? And here we have, but it was filmed inside the Capitol Hill. Says who? Says who? Just because you see a staircase up and a corridor and the same paintings, does it mean that it was actually in the Capitol Hill where Ashley Babbitt is said to have been shot, And so you see how there's no adrenaline. You see how Antifa and Black Lives Matter, both of them, George Soros funded creations, absolutely not, has nothing to do with the official story. And then it's even interesting, if you go to antifa.com, click that, it redirects straight to Joe Biden's website. But that could be a setup, but then again. But when you see also let's go to Ashley Babbitt, where she's said to have been shot. If you look at these things, you have to ask yourself, if this was a psychological operation, what elements would you add to get the emotions going, to this whole thing going? If you wanted to, in this case, I would suggest maybe destroy Donald Trump. Well, what would you use? You would use his supporters to behave like absolute vandals and crazy individuals. So you got a lot of Trump supporters with a SWAT team next to them. The SWAT team is not trying to do something to stop the demonstrators. They're actually side by side coming up the stairs. What the hell is that? I would suggest maybe it's not a SWAT team, maybe it's just people in uniform that looks like SWAT team. Then you got key people in the crowd. I'm talking about the shooting itself now, where you see that several of them have been part of other Antifa events and stuff, which is George Soros sponsored divide and conquer the world, part of their New World Order agenda.
Yeah.
So key people there. Then you have, like, we're told that Ashley Babbitt is a 14-year-old veteran, you know, that whole thing, get the national anthem going in the background, you know, and then she has a backpack and she's dressed like in the American flag. Okay, should we overdo it a little more? The colors of the American flag. And then you see she's got her backpack, which is very, very soft, up behind her head when she is sufficiently shot. She falls back, and the backpack is a perfect, like, soft landing device for her head. She's hit with what is said to be a 45 on close range. That is a powerful weapon that will push you. I mean, you can even, with a 45, you could stop a car, some people say, depending on the ammo. But that is something that would, like, blow you away, push you away. Here we see a soft fall backwards. And also, the person who's filming it, that could be part of what the whole setup, because what is this for? To create emotions on the outside. Has nothing to do with the death of an individual. Is to create the emotional waves out here from us watching it. So you got the guys filming, and you see it's a pistol being pointed out to him. Wouldn't that person freak out and say, "Oh my God, he's got a gun! Back off! Back off! He's got a gun!" Nothing. He keeps filming the gun that could at any second be pointed at him had it been real. And then this guy moves forward, changes the angle of the pistol, fires into the wall. Because even with blanks, if you're standing in front of it, you can get hurt, you know, because of gunpowder residue and stuff. So he changes the angle, fires into the wall. The girl falls backwards, very soft, very soft. There's no blood, there's no pumping blood, even though she's said to be hit right in the throat. And then there's no blood afterwards when they carry her down. There's so many things that is also connected to other, you know, she's got an actor's identity on IMDb. It's the actress, at least there's someone with that name. Then you got the guy with the horns that is also painted in the American flag that keeps appearing everywhere. He's an actor as well. You know, you can hire him for parties. He's really good at different accents and dialects. You know, he's a great guy from Arizona. And then there's no obituary for Ashley Babbitt. There's no graves, even though she might not be buried yet. The whole thing stinks of a psyop, and psyop. So what is it doing? It's pushing us into very interesting times. Very, very interesting times, because it is now affecting the whole world. The whole world is watching at this operation. And that's why it's important to find out, was it real? Was it not? And you got the whole magic of green screens as well. I am now sitting in front of a green screen. What do you see? This is the illusion that we're in. And here we have an illusion of this happening inside the Capitol, where it seems like protesters, and I've heard people who were there who doesn't seem to have been part of the operation, who said it was very quiet. We were let in. They were sort of guiding us in. Would the guards, I ask you, if there was a riot outside and they were there to protect the Capitol, would they really invite people in and guide them and say, "Cole, you have to go left in the corridor there to get in there"? Then you have the guy with the horn. He comes into the big official, blah, blah, blah. And he's walking in there on his own. And there's some police officers there in black uniforms. There's one guy sitting like this, and he's saying, "So how are you doing?" "Well, I've been shot in the face." He's on his cell phone. Totally, "I've been shot in the face." It's like, that is not normally, Paul. I don't know. I haven't been shot in the face lately, but I don't think I would sit there that calm and quiet. And it's only 3 people in there. So I asked you, when you see movies from Hollywood and you see the president in the Oval Office, do you think they filmed it in the Oval Office, or have they built a replica? I ask you, what do you think? Would the White House invite film crews all the time, or would they just say to the carpenter, "Can you please here's a measurement, Here are photos. Can you do a replica? So what are we looking at? I think I would not trust this at all. So
Yeah.
who would benefit from this whole thing? And that's where it sounds like to me that forces that is officially opposite Trump would be doing that.
Hmm.
And then the question is, who is Trump? That's a big question as well.
Yeah.
So what are we in? We're in a world of illusions
Hmm.
where I think that we have to take the power back and stay centered in ourselves and not get too rocked around by
Yeah.
whatever it is they throw at us.
Yeah. Absolutely, Ollie, and that's the thing as well. If anything, there's some suggestive programming in relation to the pattern. So here we come to the weekend, the week coming up to which will be Thursday in Australia for the 20th, and there's multiple scenarios and outcomes that are sort of being projected at this point in time, including an inauguration procedure which is being promoted and having people like Lady Gaga and emceed or narrated by people like Tom Hanks, etc. That's sort of coming up, and people are also speculating about a type of if you think like the ultimate sort of scenario to incite potentially civil war, which is part of the agenda for the US, like a potential assassination of Joe Biden at some sort of inauguration event, etc. Like, do you have any thoughts based on what you've experienced previously in relation to patterning what the particular projection and possibilities of multiple timelines occurring in this week moving forward? In relation to also people speculating that there perhaps is already martial law being enacted at this point in time.
Normally I have a pretty good understanding what's going on through intel I got from fantastic people all over the world from the inside as well. Now, absolute confusion. No one really knows. So that's interesting. I would say it's interesting people like Lady Gaga, who's been like spirit cooking with Marina Abramovich and stuff like that. Holy crap, what is that they're up to? Very satanic stuff. You got Tom Hanks, who just check out his Twitter account. If that is not spooky, then great actor. Who the hell is he? Freaked me out. Lots of shoes and satanic and pedophile, Pizzagate, the whole thing. So when these people stand up for something, it's interesting to see which side they support. Should Joe Biden be assassinated, I wouldn't believe it for 1 second. Because it would be a total setup from the side that he is officially fronting. He's sort of the front man. Who is he? He's another weird creep with very bizarre behavior, very bizarre connections, to say the least. I mean, we're looking at black, dark. So should he be assassinated? I would say absolutely staged thing, just to as a psychological operation, or that they would get rid of him, sacrifice the dude just for get the impact. But most probably he wouldn't even die, but it would be used again. It would be a Trump supporter for sure, but most probably with a red cap the other way around, which is one of the signs of the Antifa, the Trump supporter cap, but turned the other way around. So it would be a psychological operation used to hit the other side, because we are at a point where it's like it's a battle between good and evil. It's the shades have gone. There's no gray shades anymore. It's this or that, good or evil. And we're sort of like, I think this is so much bigger than us. I often feel like a piece on a chessboard, being moved around by my higher self. I don't know what I'm doing. I just follow, okay, go right, go left, look at that, and try to do my best down here. So what are we actually seeing? We're seeing an illusion being dissolved, an illusion of diversion, an illusion that is based on so much propaganda and psychological operation. It's evil that is desperately trying to cover its track. I would say it's almost like, we've been fighting the dragon, and now the dragon has been slain, and what we're seeing is the last the tail is just going all over the place, desperately trying to regain power, but it's too late. It's too late.
Yeah.
So I feel extremely positive and hopeful. And there's so many, I get reports saying incredible amounts of mass arrests, executions, liberations of children, people, all kinds of things that could be good for humanity. But I don't know at this point. But we were talking about Sasha Stone, a friend we have in common here.
Yes.
And he has studied Donald Trump and every executive order in extreme detail. I have not spent like 5 minutes listening to the guy with the hairdo, because I don't know, is he just a joker in the game? Is he a diversion? Who is he? I mean, when you look at his background, way up his own butt, building big things just to get his ego boosted. Is this a person that I think, oh, great leader? I don't think so. But in this point, when you see what we got to choose from, not that I support organized crime myself either, so I don't. So what is going on? I don't know, Paul. But what I would say is breathe, take it easy, stay calm, stay loving, stay brave, say no, and be aware of what are they trying to push on you, and understand that it's being pushed to you through a black box in front of you, a so-called smart device, a laptop, a phone, or a TV screen. It's called smart. It's wrong. They spelled it wrong. The correct spelling is evil, E-V-I-L, evil. That's what it is, and it's there to control you. So when they say the world is going under, the world is horrible, the world is so dangerous, look out the window. I bet that if you look out through the window, life is going to be pretty beautiful. If you see a butterfly go, please explain, how can the butterfly even fly? There's so many things the life is so big, we don't get it at all. It's magical. And then we have the black screen saying, no, everything is evil, everything is rotten. This is where you should look. This is where you should be fearful. It's like you opening your mouth to a sewage drain, saying, please,
yes,
poison me even more.
Yeah.
So we are at a grip of illusionists that are trying to get into our mind, because that's the only way they can get to us, through our mind and through fear. And Paul, I know I ramble on, but I just want to say this. There's a beautiful thing with fear, and the human mind, especially the male mind. We can only think one thought at a time. We can only have one emotion at a time. Okay, so you can't be totally in despair and super happy. You cannot think two things at the same time. So there's only room for one. This is good news, because when fear enters, that is the only one you can fear, that you can feel or focus on. But the beauty of fear is, where is fear? Is it hiding in the corner? Is it blue? Is it square? No, it's only in the mind. And it's always connected to the future, to something that has not yet happened. So when you think of it, it's an absolute waste of life to be fearful, because we don't know what's going to happen anyway.
Yeah.
And so when they try to control you through fear, become aware of who benefits from you believing it, and then see and find ways of letting go of fear. Because the more peaceful you can become, the more peaceful you can be in your heart and so on, the more and better decisions you can make that is good for you and your loved ones, whatever the situation is. So stay in balance, don't buy into fear, see what you can do to lift the world, because we all need it, we're all in the same boat, and then go out and do it. Follow the heart, the law of the heart. Be good, do good, and help to lift,
Yeah.
It's wonderful. They're showing us. They say divide and conquer. I say unite and hug. They say fear that. I say fuck that. They say, it's like whatever they say, vitamins is not good for you. Really, really. So, cinnamon is dangerous. Thank you so much. I'm going to look into what is so good with cinnamon. They're trying to persuade us, and the world is absolutely 180 degrees upside down. So we just have to turn it around, and boom, Bob's your uncle.
Absolutely. Beautiful, Ole. On that note, I think we might leave it there. Can you just share with us how people can find you and your work, how they can reach you?
My website is lightonconspiracies.com. I got a monthly newsletter, like I say. It's like, I'm sure you can imagine, people like Paul and me are not so well funded, because nobody wants to hire us. But so if anyone wants to support, please do. I've got a Patreon page, and so has Paul. Don't forget that. Get him off the ground with Patreon, support him there. And I'm everywhere, even though I'm being shut down right, left, and center, as Paul, because we are apparently I'm being shut down for bullying and hate speech. Go figure. But that's the one. And if they can't hit you with anything else, it's Holocaust denier, the ultimate weapon used against truth. So I would very much like to end with a prayer.
Yes,
and it
please.
goes like this. May the entire universe be filled with peace and joy. That's the entire universe be filled with peace and joy, love and light. May everyone, and especially the ones who hurt us, be filled with peace and joy, love and light. That's right. Especially the ones who hurt us, be filled with peace and joy, love and light. May the light of truth overcome all darkness, so victory to that light. Because it's actually the absolute worst assholes in our lives that are the best teachers. And without them, without super psychopaths like Fauci and Gates and Bush Senior and these type of individuals that are like, whoa, we wouldn't have met.
Yeah.
And so many other beautiful things wouldn't have happened. And apparently we have been too much up our own butt and into our own greeds and desires that we have let this happen. And apparently we need a sledgehammer to the forehead, so okay, bring it on. But try to stay in focus, in gratitude, and just lift your frequency, and let's manage this, because this is challenging times. We need to hold each other's hand so we don't get too fearful, and so we don't get into violence and brutality, which would create a lot of bad karma. And then we just transcend this, and then, Paul, kick back, cold beer, and I'll join you for a little jam session.
Yeah, we'll play some tunes. So thank you for everyone for listening that are watching live or they're watching this video after the fact. As mentioned, please subscribe to Ole's Patreon account to support us, and we also have a Patreon account for Messages for the Underground as well. Anything that we can get to that way. Yeah, it's on the flip. But so thank you for everyone listening. Ole Dammegard, an absolute pleasure. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to another message from the underground. Want to know more? Head over to Facebook and search for our private Facebook group, Messages from the Underground, or visit www.messagesfromtheunderground.org. To connect with Paul Seils, please visit paulseils.com. Stay human, protect the planet, raise the consciousness.